Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, welcome to my channel. My name is Paige, if you guys don't already know, and this is going to be my labor and delivery story. I'm going to make a few disclaimers before I get started. One, I am very sorry for the lighting. I am using natural lighting right now, so I'm trying to get this done and over with before I lose my natural lighting. Second, I am sick, so if I sound weird or anything like that, I'm very sorry. Third, if you guys hear any noises in the background, that is my family. I'm not going to tell them to stop doing something while I'm trying to do something. If you hear any grunts or anything like that, that's just him. He's moving around. So, yeah, so let's get started. Before I get on with my pregnancy video and everything like that, or my labor and delivery story, I did have a lot of problems in the last 2 months of my pregnancy. Not as bad as some mothers go through, but mine was pretty decent to the point where my doctor did recommend me not getting pregnant again anytime soon, or not at all if anything. So on the 18th of October I had started to get contractions. Like pretty decent contractions too. So, you know, I just was like, you know, I'm 37 weeks pregnant, even though that's considered full term. You know, that's still a little bit early, and my doctor was still concerned with it. So he was like, you know, go into labor and delivery and see what they say. And I was like, okay. So I went into labor and delivery. They hooked me up to a monitor, and they said, you know, you are having contractions. Your heart rate's fine. His heart rate's fine. So, you know, go walk around for a little bit, come back, we're going to check you and see if everything works out. I walked around, came back, they checked me, they said, you know, you're 2 centimeters dilated. That is not enough for us to pull you in yet, so you know what, go walk around, because you are having contractions and you are 37 weeks pregnant, so we are able to pull you in without stopping your labor. So go walk around again and then come back and then tell us, we'll see how everything goes. So I went and walked around again, came back, and they were like, you know, now you're 2.5 centimeters dilated. Still not enough for us to pull you in. How bad are your contractions? I told them that they weren't that bad. So they were like, okay, so go walk around again and then come back and we're going to check you again. I went back, I walked around the hospital for a good hour and a half at this point. And I came back and they were like, okay, so how bad are your contractions? And I was like, okay, they're probably about a 6 or a 7. And they were like, okay, you're still 2.5 centimeters dilated, so we're going to send you home. If your contractions persist and get stronger to the point where you can't breathe or talk, you need to come in, or if your water breaks, come back in. I didn't care because I had a doctor's appointment the next morning. So I was like, you know, okay, then that's fine, whatever, I'll just wait it out and then see what my doctor says tomorrow. Came back home, rested, didn't really do anything. I didn't walk anymore or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to rest because I didn't know when I was going to have him. So I just wanted a little bit more sleep and everything like that. Around 9 o'clock the next morning, I had went to my OBGYN's, and my boyfriend was with me, thank God. He was with me that time, and he did an ultrasound, and he does every time. He shows me like this big circle, and he's like, you see that? That's his head. And I was like, okay. And he's like, and it's down where it's supposed to be, so you're good. The placenta's good, the amniotic fluid is good. Awesome. All right, cool. And he was like, we're going to check you because you keep telling me you're having contractions, and you've been having contractions since 7 months. And I was like, yeah. So he checked me, and he looked up at me, and his eyes got really wide, and he got this really big smile on his face, and he goes, well, you're 4 centimeters dilated. Or he said, I think he said 3.5, almost 4 centimeters dilated. And when I heard 4 centimeters, I was like, wait a minute. And I even told him, I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, last night it was 2. I know you're supposed to dilate, like, pretty quickly. I said, but my water didn't break, and I'm dilating pretty quickly, so what does that mean? He goes, well, your hospital won't pull you in until you're around 4 to 5 centimeters dilated. So my suggestion is, sorry if this is too TMI, this is going to get very TMI-ish, especially if you're a guy. So if you're a guy watching this, I'm sorry if anything is kind of grossed out for you guys, but he said, go home, have sex, go bounce on a yoga ball, drink plenty of fluids, eat spicy food, do whatever you can to get this baby out. And I was like, okay. So I went home, I laid down real quick, took a quick power nap, and then I started to bounce on my yoga ball. I bounced on my yoga ball for a good 3 hours. And mind you, I slept by the time I got home from my doctor's appointment, which is around 11 o'clock in the afternoon, slept until 1, and then bounced from 1 to 3. So, well, 1 to 4. At 4, you know, my contractions got really strong, and I was monitoring them. They were literally 1 minute apart. So I was like, okay, I'm going back to labor and delivery. I'm not caring what anyone says. Went to labor and delivery, not even 20 minutes in being there, they checked me, and they said, you know, you are 4.5 centimeters dilated. We're admitting you're going to have a baby today. Awesome. So they called my doctor, they had set me up, they did the blood work and everything they were supposed to. I was laying in bed, chilling out, getting excited to meet my boy. The nurse comes in and she goes, okay, so the doctor says he wants to start you on Pitocin because your contractions are getting stronger, you're not really feeling it, but yet you're dilating. So we're going to start you on Pitocin to see if that helps move this process along any quicker. Especially since I am B negative and I was having problems with cholestasis. They wanted to get him out as healthy as possible, not let him stay in there as long as possible. So they were like, okay, we're going to start you on Pitocin. If you guys don't know what that is, it's a medication that they give you through an IV in the labor and delivery ward to help continue your contractions. So they hooked me up to Pitocin and an IV and everything like that, and they told me, you know, once this Pitocin bag's out, we are out of options. We don't know what to do with you. If you don't dilate anymore, that'll determine whether or not you're going home or not. And so in my head, it's just like, no, I just got here. I want to have my baby. So at one point, fast forward till probably around 1 o'clock in the morning on the 20th. The nurse came in and was like, you're out of Pitocin. I don't know what to do now. Let me check you to see how far along you are. I got up to 5 centimeters. And they were like, okay, so we're going to call your doctor and see what he wants you to do. So we were like, okay. Waited. My mom and my boyfriend and his mom were in the room. My boyfriend had left to go home and sleep a little bit since I wasn't having the baby anytime soon. So it was just my mom and his mom in the room. She comes back. I don't remember this at all. She comes back in probably around 2, 3 in the morning and goes, okay, we called your doctor. And I was like, okay. And she was like, he doesn't want to continue Pitocin anymore, but what he wants you to do is to just relax, and then he'll come and see you early in the morning. Fast forward to probably about 30 minutes later, a different nurse came in and she goes, I asked her, I said, has there been any more word from my doctor? Does he know what we're going to do? She's like, oh yeah, he's coming in early in the morning to come break your water. I kind of just sat there and I stared at her. I was like, we're doing what now? And she was like, yeah, he's coming in to break your water. I was like, okay, no one told me that. Why am all of a sudden I'm being told he's going to break my water? Like, no one told me anything. And she was like, well, he's coming in. We need to get this baby moving. You're too far along for us to send you back home. So we're going to break your water. She's like, so from now until then, I suggest you get as much sleep as possible, because once your water breaks, you're not going to get any sleep. And I was like, okay, well, fast forward to probably around 8-ish, 9-ish in the morning. I had just woken up. I was talking to my mom, my boyfriend's mom, and my doctor walks in my door. He goes, hey, how's it going? All right, ready to break your water? And I was like, oh, this is happening now? Okay. So I got scared. He broke my water, and I'm going to tell you right now, that was the most painful thing I ever had to do. Everyone who's had their water broken told me, no, it's fine, you're fine. And I was like, okay. So I was like, oh, it's not gonna hurt. No, it hurt. Like, I'm not gonna cuss, but it hurt like, oh my God. Like, I can't even describe to you what that pain was. After he broke my water, the nurse told me, you know, if you need the epidural, I need to know as soon as possible, because it takes about 30 minutes to get everything ready between other patients and the OR and everything like that. I just need to know when you want it, and then to wait about 30 minutes so we can get her in here. Once my water broke, the contractions started and they were very, very painful. Like, they weren't as bad as him breaking my water, but they were pretty painful. I gave it probably about 2 seconds, and right before the nurse left, I looked at her, I said, I need the epidural. So she comes in, she's like, okay. They had the anesthesiologist come in, and I was lucky because she was in between a patient and the OR, and she had nothing in between. So she was like, okay, yeah, I can go do her right now. So I got my epidural like that, and I was pretty lucky. Even my nurse was like, you're so lucky you got it that quick, because some other girls gotta wait like 45 minutes. The epidural for me wasn't painful, neither was the numbing for the epidural. None of that was painful for me. The catheter was honestly the worst part of it all. I don't like catheters, I don't like how they feel. So the catheter for me was very painful, but the epidural helped so much. I was really relaxed. But at this point I was about 6 centimeters dilated. And the nurse comes in and she goes, so how are you feeling? And I told her, I said, you know, I have this really, really big urge to push. And she was like, no, you're only 6 centimeters dilated, don't push, do whatever you can not to push. And I was like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, I was like bawling, I have to push, I have to. And she was like, no, you have to wait. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So I ended up waiting in tears, like crying this whole time, in tears that I have to push because I can't. I was so uncomfortable. She comes in, I called her back into the room probably about 20 minutes later and looked at her and said, look, you do not understand, I have to push. And she was like, okay, let me check you to see where you are. She checks me and she goes, holy crap, you are a 10. And I said, yeah. I said, so when can I start pushing? And she was like, she looked at me and she's like, I'm going to page your doctor right now, but you can start pushing now. And I was like, so I can start pushing right now? And she said, yeah. So she told my mom, my boyfriend's mom, and my boyfriend, you know, 2 of you get on the side of her, help her hold up her legs. Paige, we need you to grab both of your legs to push. Christian, stand right there, do whatever you need to support her. Okay, cool. I started pushing. It was my fault that I hit my epidural button to give me more medicine. It works within 15 minutes. With each dose, so every 15 minutes I get another dose. I hit that button 3 times before I went to start pushing because I didn't know I was going to start pushing, and I started to feel more contractions. So I hit the button 3 times. Obviously I'm not going to overdose or anything because it takes more than 15 minutes to get the next dose. So I started pushing, and the nurse came in and she goes, you need to push, and she has her hand, you know, up there. She was like, you need to push. And I was like, you know, I'm pushing. And she was like, no, you're not pushing. And I was like, no, I'm pushing. Like, my face, like, I was starting to, like, I thought I was going to pass out. That's how bad I was pushing. And she was like, well, you're not pushing right. And I was like, okay, whatever. She had me, sorry if T might open, my boyfriend, she grabbed my boyfriend to come look, and you could see his head in my cervix. She saw his head. So she was like, you're not pushing enough. And then so she called another nurse. She's like, you need to call her doctor. She's not pushing right. Well, my doctor comes in and he goes, okay, Paige, I need you to push for me. I pushed and I pushed and I pushed to the point, again, I thought I was going to pass out. And my nurse is like, you're not pushing, like screaming at me. My doctor looked at her and said, she is pushing. She's not feeling where she's pushing. So they called the anesthesiologist in to dim down my epidural so I can feel what I was doing. And I started pushing again and pushing, and nothing was happening. Like, he wasn't coming out, anything like that. I kept pushing, and he was like, he felt where my tailbone was, and I guess my tailbone is too curved up, so it made it a lot harder for me to push and a lot harder for him to get out. So he was like, okay, so he looked at my nurse and he was like, okay, we're going to continue to push and see how long we can get this going to. This will determine whether or not if she needs to have a C-section. So that kind of worried me because I didn't want a C-section, but I spent my whole pregnancy learning about C-sections that I didn't spend enough time learning about a vaginal birth. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm ready for a C-section. You know, if I have to, I have to. Well, then my doctor looked at me and my mom after probably about 10 more minutes of pushing. He goes, you know, she is pushing. The skin of his head is coming out of her cervix, but his bones aren't. It's just his skin. So nothing, he's not coming out. He's stuck. I started to worry. So they flipped me over on my side, lifted my leg up, told me like, okay, we're going to labor you down for a little bit. And I kept crying. I was like, I have to push. I need him out. I have to push. And they were like, no, 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 don't push, don't push, don't push. You're not having a contraction yet. And these are the nurses that are telling me. It took my doctor to look at my nurses and say, if she needs to push, let her push. Comes to find out that the reason why my contractions weren't showing up on the monitor was because they were placed on me wrong. So they were thinking I'm not having contractions when I was. And they were telling me not to push when I was supposed to. So after probably about 5 minutes of my doctor screaming at the nurses saying, let her push, they finally let me push. And so they figured out everything that was going on. And when they looked back at the monitor, they saw that his heart rate was dropping. And so was mine. Both of our heart rates were dropping. I was low on oxygen. And his heart rate was skyrocketing down. So when it came time, he was like, he told the nurse, he's like, okay, nope, go get the OR ready. She's having C-section now. We need to get this done now. So I started to freak out. I thought I was a bad mother. Anyone who's been in this situation who can't feel like they can't push out their child, at least to me, I felt like I was a bad mother because I couldn't do what I needed to do for my son. So I started crying, but my doctor was like, okay, you can stop now. We're going to go give you a C-section. And I started freaking out, and I looked at him, I said, I can't do that. I have to push. I have to push. And he's like, okay, you can push up until you get into the OR. So I was like, okay, cool. I pushed and I pushed and I pushed, and my doctor is sitting there in the corner getting ready for the OR, while me, my mom, a nurse, and my boyfriend and my boyfriend's mom are all sitting there, and I'm pushing. Well, then, the next few minutes, they said, come on, give us one more big push. All of a sudden, I felt my doctor, sorry if this is TMI again, numb my area, and then I felt him cut, and then I felt gushes of blood. Well, he was like, Paige, come on, one more push. I pushed like I've never pushed before. I know I've never had a child, but I pushed so hard that he came out. He finally came out, and my mom, my boyfriend's mom, and my boyfriend were like, oh my God, good job. And this is at the same time the nurse came in to tell us, okay, hey, the OR's ready. She looked at my doctor, she goes, well, I came in here to tell you the OR's ready, but I guess you don't need it now, so I guess it's ready for the next person. Well, my boyfriend looked at me, like, me and my boyfriend did not stop looking at each other. Well, we didn't hear him cry at all. I started crying and looking around like, why isn't he crying? Why isn't he crying? My boyfriend was just staring at me about to cry because my son was not crying. And so I looked at my doctor and I was like, why isn't he crying? He's like, hold on, mama. He's been through a lot just like you have. Just give him a minute. They were speaking him, putting him upside down, trying to get everything. Finally, the best sound ever came out and I just started bawling. I was just like, my baby. I was so tired. I was so exhausted, but all I could think about was my son. He was born at 3:54 p.m. on October 20th, 7 pounds, 13 ounces, 19 inches long. And that was the best yet most scariest experience I have ever been through. I didn't think I could do it, but I did. They had to make sure everything was okay, but he came out perfectly healthy. He didn't have to go to the NICU or anything like that. Perfectly healthy baby. Pretty easy pregnancy, pretty easy labor and delivery, other than the fact that his heart rate dropped. So that was my experience. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, comment down below and I'll try to help you my best. I'm sorry again if I spoke too quickly or anything like that. But if you have any more questions, comment down below or comment on my Twitter because I'm starting to be more active on there and I'll help you guys out. So now I'm going to let you guys meet my son and I'm going to tell you his name. Just give me 1 minute. Oh, I'm sorry, handsome. This is my son. You say hi. He's sleeping. You say hi. He's stretching. His name is Silas Emmanuel Anthony Hernandez. During the labor and delivery, my boyfriend looked at me, he goes, he looks like an Anthony, he doesn't look like a Silas. I was like, no, he looks like a Silas. And my boyfriend's mom was like, why don't you just put Anthony as his middle name? So that's why he has 2 middle names. He is literally the cutest thing ever. I love him to death. But this is him. The best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm just gonna say that now. But yeah, so if you guys have any questions, you guys want to see any videos, let me know if you guys want to hear what had happened before I went into labor, why the whole thing with choleostasis and everything like that. I'll do a whole video on that on there alone. But if you guys have any questions or want to see any videos or anything like that, comment down below or go on Twitter. And yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry again for speaking too quickly and if this video was too long. Yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next video.